Gen Z has an identity crisis, and we need to talk about it. Hey guys, what's up? It's Imurgency and welcome back to my channel. Today we are back and we're talking about Gen Z once again. But today we're going to be talking about Gen Z's alleged identity crisis and how things like microtrends and extremely personalized algorithms kind of strip away individual identity and place for different aesthetics and vibes that can be and have been used to replace actual personality traits. I feel like this is an interesting point of conversation because I feel like usually when we talk about Gen Z and how Gen Z has been referenced and talked about in the past, or really made out to be or seem like this monolithic entity that thinks the same way and has the same sort of values and personality traits, when in reality, like any other generation, that just isn't the case. And for Gen Z specifically, I'd say that we're so individualized based on the content that we consume and the specific media that we see day to day that makes us so different from other generations. Because there's a new microtrend that comes out every other week that people really align themselves with and make their entire personality for a set of time before jumping and leaping onto another one. There's a lot to talk about and we're gonna get into it. So if you are new around here, hi, my name is Jeremy and welcome back to Imurgency, a little series that I run on this channel where we talk about all things Gen Z and media, pop culture, and the internet. And if you like content like this, then you should definitely hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of the content that I have coming out on this channel every single week, as well as leaving a like on this video and follow me on my socials at Imurgency on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And if you're itching for some early access and completely exclusive content, consider hitting the join button and becoming a channel member today to get 2 exclusive members only videos a month, as well as early access to every single one of these videos. But enough so promo, let's talk about why Gen Z has an identity crisis. Now, like I said before, Gen Z is not a monolith. It's commonly said that Gen Z has these core themes, values, understandings, and like outlooks on life, society, and culture, which I don't think is necessarily true anymore. I feel like a big issue that isn't talked about online is that Gen Z doesn't really have a common culture or a common understanding or belief on things because of the rise of individualized algorithms. We don't have a collective cultural understanding, even when it comes to things like pop culture, because there are so many things like microtrends, microcultures, and different facets of the internet that people can go down rabbit holes in and be fascinated and enraptured by. They create these different bubbles where you just don't see a lot of other things that other people around your age, location, and community may. And that's something that I've been realizing more and more, and the internet will continuously remind me of this, is that we don't all consume the same content. We really do all live in our little bubbles, and sometimes we're lucky when we have those bubbles intersect with one another. I saw a lot of discourse online fairly recently, specifically when it came to the Billboard Top 10 charts being released for the week of April 1st, where a lot of people were gagged to see what the top 10 were, with the only female artists on the charts being Ariana Grande with We Can't Be Friends, and the rest being male dominated with like rap and a mix of other stuff. And I run in the gay bubbles. I run in the circles with the girlies and gays. So I'm not really tapped into that facet of the internet either. So I was kind of gagged to see that top 10 list because like, where all these people come from? Of course I know who they are. Well, most of them, the ones, but I had no idea that there was a new music release. And these aren't like no-name artists. Like these are huge artists like Future, Kendrick Lamar, and Metro Boomin. Like these are huge artists. It's just that I and many others aren't on that side of the internet very often, so we're not tapped in. Well, there's a disconnect there with other people that are around my age and are obsessed with that. And that's just one example. A better example that we saw a little earlier this year came from the Grammys when they were talking about who's winning the Best New Artist Award. And it really showed like how someone could be super famous to one demographic of people in one aspect of the internet, whereas another artist or another creative can just be seemingly unknown. Because that week there was a ton of discourse over whether or not Victoria Monet deserved to win that award over the other people that were nominated, with some people being like, who even is Victoria Monet? When I think that they were hoping that someone named Noah Kahan would win. Different strokes, different folks. But we're seeing a disconnect there, where you can live in a world where you know who Noah Kahan is, but don't know who Victoria Monet is, or if you live in a world where you don't know who Victoria Monet is, but you can be a Noah Kahan stan. And I feel like this difference of opinion and just like general understanding for who we are as a generation, who we like, what we like, is so well exemplified in artists and celebrities. Because unlike times of the past, it's so possible that you can be a very successful celebrity with millions and millions of followers, sold out tours, debut #1 on the charts, and still have seemingly no one know who you are, simply because people aren't tapped into that side of pop culture, of the internet. Didn't used to be the case. Like back in the day, not that I would like know from firsthand experience, but from what I've heard, if someone had a #1 song on the charts, everyone would hear it because of radio play, and they would be a superstar. Like they would be a household name. People would know who they are, for better or for worse. Whether or not you like them or not, you would know their name, you would know who they are, because there was just this level of superstardom that existed back in that day. Nowadays, because there are so many artists artists, because we're able to have so much choice and agency over who we support, who we listen to, and what is presented in front of us, that's just not necessarily the case anymore, which I feel like is a reason behind why we don't have as many superstars, as many standout new A-list celebrities like we used to. And I keep hinting at this, but I feel like one of the major things that caused this change, this shift, is the rise of individualized and personalized algorithms and feeds. And for me personally, I first noticed this sort of personalized feed thing happening with Instagram. Like back before when Instagram used to be primarily chronological, like you'd just see posts in the order in which they were posted and based on who you follow. But then they had that one shift where it was kind of out of order and it was based on your engagement and who you were more likely to engage with and not who you followed. And then they put in people that you don't even follow at all, but they think you would like and they think would suit your vibe. Like that was my first introduction, at least that I was conscious of like a personalized, individualized feed. And at first I didn't really like that because I'm like, I want the control in this. Like I want to see what I know I want to see. I want to see the people that I follow in the order that they post them so I can keep up and know what's going on in their lives. But then at least for me, it shifted when the algorithm started getting a little good and I was like, oh wait, I actually don't mind the way that you're doing this. You seem to know my interests pretty well. And now I kind of don't even bat an eye because it's a hit for me right now at least. And then when we're talking about personalized and individualized feeds, it's impossible to not mention TikTok because I feel like TikTok is like the more recent example of like a hyper personalized feed. This one I started to notice that content was starting to get more niche and that people I was around started relating less and less with the content that I would personally consume. Like they're just niche references that other people won't get because they're not on that side of TikTok. They're not on my algorithm, my For You page. And I feel like contrasting that with another short form video app, like say videos from like the Vine era, where nothing was really super personalized and it was just a general feed of content that was really popular, we all pretty much saw the same vines, the same popular vines. Whereas now with TikTok, it's very easy to just be in your own bubble and be on your own side of TikTok and not see something that's trending or popular on another side of the app. And I've mentioned this in previous videos before, but the same can be said about YouTube. Like YouTube had an evolution where it became more and more personalized with things like having your home tab, having like a For You-esque page now. That wasn't the case before. Like I've mentioned in previous videos, like in the earlier years of YouTube, you would at least know of all the popular YouTubers that were on the platform. Like if you were on the internet at that time and say like, I don't know, Shane Dawson back in the day put out a YouTube video, you saw it. And if you hadn't seen it, you'd at least heard of it. Or you'd see someone reacting to that video, making a commentary on that video. Like you'd be in the universe and you'd know about it, versus now where that's just not necessarily always the case. And we've seen this continued push for more personalized content, not just on social media, but in all the content that we consume. Like I said, the personalized YouTube homepage, even streaming services have become personalized. Even TV and film have been more personalized with the rise of streaming services having personalized recommendations. So the shift from cable just showing whatever was available and everyone just watching that, people have more agency and choice over the content that they consume and what they're watching. So it's a lot easier now. So instead of before, where not seeing a popular movie or show would make you seem like out of touch and out the loop with just general pop culture. Nowadays, if you haven't seen a popular show or popular movie, you may have just not heard of it because it wasn't trending on your side of the internet or wasn't being promoted on your algorithm. And most interestingly, we've seen a dramatic increase in the personalization of music consumption. With the rise of music apps like Spotify that directly give you individualized playlists full of new and old music, people's music tastes are expanding while also being more niche than they ever been, if that makes sense. Like it's so much easier now to be tapped into a wide array of music, from artists that everyone knows to artists that may just be getting started out, which can essentially make everyone the like underground listener unintentionally, which is really cool for aspiring artists because there's more widespread discoverability of their music and content. But in terms of day-to-day interpersonal relatability for like what we as a generation or like we in our community of people in Gen Z, like, it makes it kind of difficult because we don't all like the same things because we're not all consuming the same content. And with these different means of content consumption and different forms of content being consumed, enters the micro trends and micro cultures. Now, typically the phrase micro trend is used in a fashion context of like a micro fashion trend or like a fad that comes in for like a year or a season and then comes out. I'm using micro trend more liberally, but also including just like general trends that we're seeing online and on social media. Getting into different subgroups, subcultures, and subcommunities is a lot more common and a lot easier than before. And in that, we've sort of created this lust for an aesthetic. Like it's cool and almost coveted to have an aesthetic that you fall under and to encapsulate you, so that your general interests, general vibes, and look to you can be described as blank aesthetic. And these aesthetics can come and go and can be more niche or more mainstream than others, with popular recent aesthetics being things like the Aaliyah core aesthetic, the coquette clean girl aesthetic, it boy aesthetic, mob wife, cottagecore. Like you can go on and on and on. There are different aesthetics that you can choose to fall under, and each of those aesthetics kind of come with their own community, their own look, their own like, oh, how you can look like this. These certain places and activities give a certain aesthetic. So if you want to be this aesthetic, you can participate in these things, essentially forming personalities and identities for people, which isn't inherently a bad thing. I know I kind of made that seem like it was like, ooh, you shouldn't use social media to build your personality, but that's not inherently a bad thing. It's just something to notice because it's new. In a blog post written by Jasmine Harris talking about Gen Z subcultures, stating that though it's another space where they're happy to move freely between various groups, aesthetic subcultures still give a sense of identity. It's not just going to the gym, but they're a Barry's boot camp goer, not just a Make-A-Willow but a Glossier girl. And in this context, they're talking more about how there's more so brand allegiance with these different subcultures and groups. But what can be pulled for this is the need to label and create these identities around these different interests, hobbies, to essentially create these identities for ourselves. Like you're not just someone that likes neutrals, putting your hair in a slick back bun, and journaling. No, you're a clean girl. You're not just someone who's black and likes nicer things and experiences. You're black girl or black boy luxury. And like I said, these aesthetics, these categories aren't bad things. In fact, they're really convenient and they're really fun, especially when they're working for you and you feel like you can upkeep that aesthetic and upkeep that vibe. I'm just saying that while that can be true, it is also true that the reliance and the yearning to have or fit into an aesthetic can contribute to this identity crisis that a lot of people in Gen Z face when it comes to figuring out who you are as a person and who you truly are outside of these myriad of different aesthetics that are out there. I know a lot of people can feel isolated or like they don't have a set identity or don't really know who they are if they don't fit into an aesthetic, if they don't resonate with an aesthetic or have a vibe that they necessarily fit into yet. And of course, having a sense of style or set of interests is important, but the reliance on having this outward facing image to have people categorize and label you as and in, it shouldn't always be this aspirational thing. Like it's okay to grow and to change and to not necessarily always fit in within these aesthetics or in these different subcultures, but as you grow and as you learn, it shouldn't be like you hop from aesthetic to aesthetic, hop from vibe to vibe. Like you should be free to grow and expand who you are outside of that and shouldn't feel pressure to fall into a niche. And I feel like some of that really stems from the whole like need for everyone to be a brand and everyone to have their own brand, which could be an entirely different video about the commodification and monetization of personalities and who we are as people. So if you want to see a full video on that, let me know, because that sounds kind of fun. But I feel like a lot of people are having like this identity crisis because like, who are we outside of the content and media that we consume on a daily basis? Like, who are we really outside of that? And some might say these aesthetics and microtrends or whatever are really great for like finding community of people that are like-minded and are interested in similar things. But while yes, that can also be true, there's also irony in that, in the sense like the deeper that you go down these pipelines, the deeper that you go down into these aesthetics and get more and more niche, the fewer and fewer people you can actually relate to, until you get down to a really niche down form of your aesthetic, of the content that you consume that really is personal to you and can only really suit you. And while that's an extreme case and not the case for everybody, it's just like the conversation of how much is too much and how far do we go with individualized content and just the sense of individualism as opposed to something that's more communal and community oriented. Because as we talked about in previous videos in this series, Gen Z is also going through a loneliness epidemic in terms of like being able to relate with each other, be in community with each other, and make genuine connections. And siloing ourselves off in the content that we consume can contribute to that because there's less for us to necessarily relate with if we're not watching similar things or able to make similar references. And I feel like looking forward in the future, if we're not more intentional about that, things are only going to get more so personalized, especially with the increased integration of AI in the content and media that we consume. It's eventually going to get down to a science where content and media that's served to you is specifically tailored to you one-to-one. Like algorithms are only going to get better at serving you the content that they know you're going to want to watch. But yeah, is Gen Z in an identity crisis that can't be fixed and we're all just so messed up? No, but I do still feel like we are less holistically connected than people have been cracking us up to be. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because I feel like where it matters, a lot of us can come together to have similar values, I guess. But in terms of the content that we consume and the references that we make and our just general interests, we're kind of all over the place. And again, that's okay. But that's all I got for today, y'all. Let me know down in the comments what you think about this. Do you feel like Gen Z has an identity crisis? And do you see the disconnect between different parts of our generation through the internet. Let me know all your thoughts down in the comment section below. Again, if you're new and like content like this, then subscribe, leave a like in this video, follow me on my socials at Imurgency on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And other than that, y'all, I've been Imurgency, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.